Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Former professional boxer Alan Santana is our featured guest today. Alan talks about his boxing career as well as his experiences as a referee. He will also highlight his organization, No Teen Writers.
Alan Santana, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark. Good morning. Thank you.
A pleasure to have you. Alan, although many young people dream about a career in professional sports when they're 10, I want to be like this guy, I want to be like this guy. You actually lived that life. How did you first become involved in the sport of boxing?
I'll make it the short version. I was bullied as a little boy, around 8, 9 years old. Went home to my father, and this was repeated bullying. Went home to my dad and asked him to teach me how to defend myself. Unbeknownst to me, my father was an ex-professional prize fighter. So when I went to him, and I can still remember this, he took me to Big Five Sporting Goods over in San Pedro, California, bought me a heavy bag, an Everlast heavy bag, bought me some boxing gloves, and took me back home. And then in the evenings when he would get off of work, he started teaching me how to fight. And that's how I got involved in boxing. I fell in love with the sport at a very young age, and then had an extensive amateur career and a professional career.
That's incredible. That's quite a secret for a manly man to not tell his son. You know, you figure over dinner one night, by the way, I used to fight a lot, and I used to be a prize fighter. So that's so interesting. Lucky because, a lot of people don't have that ability. They'll go to boxing classes or something like that. So, but let's turn the clock back a bit, because I know you've mentioned the bullying. So tell me more about those struggles you had as a youngster, be it bullying or anything else.
Well, I was one of the littlest guys in class, and just got picked on. And, I was one of those guys that's a very outgoing kid. But I was picked on a lot because of my size. And, that it does mess with you. And once I learned how to defend myself, it was a crazy story. My mother went down to the school one Friday after school. And you know how that is when you're a little kid, everybody knows you're going to have a fight with the biggest kid in class. Literally after school, my mom walked down to the corner of this place called Burgerville on Pacific Coast Highway. She literally refereed this fight. All the kids were there. A lot of kids came down, and I mean, it's unheard of today. That wouldn't happen, but so I beat this kid up, and he was a big kid. Fast forward 25 years, I hadn't seen this guy for a long time. I found out he was a football player later on in life. He remembers seeing me, remembers when we were kids, and he said, "Alan, I remember when you beat the heck out of me." He says, "It gave me a whole different perspective on picking on people." So he says, "I never messed with anybody ever again after that." So that was a tough lesson, I guess.
Wow. It sounds like your mother may have a little bit of Don King in her back then.
Oh, she did.
I just hope she didn't have that same hairstyle, but that guy, what an icon.
Right.
I used to love boxing when I was younger, watched it much more than I do now. So, you're also the author when it talks about teaching lessons to people. You didn't know at that young age you would change his perspective. But I talk to so many people in sports, authors, even celebrities. They don't realize that people don't realize that whatever they're in, glamour or not, it's a business.
Right.
And sports is a multi-billion-dollar business. You're also the author of the book Unprotected. Of course, I've read your book, and I learned a lot more than the title would lead me to believe. I thought it was Unprotected. I thought it was going to be a boxing book. Protect yourself. Hold your hands this way. What can you tell us about the passion behind Unprotected?
Well, growing up in the sport and being involved in boxing all my life, and especially going through my professional career, I trained out of 108th Street and Broadway. I saw many athletes, many professional fighters, I should say, actually make quite a bit of money and wind up with nothing. And in my book, I mentioned guys, Mike Tyson, $100 million was broke at one point of his life. Evander Holyfield was another one. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And then I talked about, you look at basketball players, baseball players. So it didn't matter. I mean, the book crossed all genres of sport. And I just saw a need to teach or educate athletes, I should say, about how to dress, how to speak, about bank accounts. You'd be surprised how many guys don't know how to do that stuff. And that's not something they really teach you in school. So I felt the need to write this book. One day I just sat down and said, I want to do something. So I wrote this book. and put all these different topics in there, and it's done very well. So I'm very fortunate that I'm able to get the word out on that.
That's great, because people don't realize, especially young people, don't realize when you make all that money, making it and keeping it is different. I remember I used to tell students back when I was teaching, if somebody's making $30 million a year and then they retire, they go from $30 million a year sometimes to nothing. Of course, there's all those endorsement deals and whatever, but the average professional athlete, when they go from a certain amount to nothing, their bills are what they were when they were making that big money. So investing properly, reading contracts properly. I mean, you mentioned Mike Tyson. I went to school at SUNY Albany, and my girlfriend then, who's now my wife, we were at the mall in Albany, and we saw Mike Tyson with his entourage there. And lo and behold, years later, after he reinvented himself, I saw him on Broadway doing his one-man show. And I actually have a picture with him. But quite the story when you hear about somebody who was a household name, and how could someone possibly go from here to there in such a short amount of time. So it's so important what you did. And I really love the book. So I want to also talk about, you mentioned, I was going to ask you who were your heroes or who helped you with this passion. But I guess the first referee you ever met was your mom.
Right.
I know you transitioned from boxer to referee and beyond. So what was that experience like for you, and where did you take that referee knowledge to?
Actually, the referee part, I've never been a referee, and that's perfectly fine. But I was fortunate to, after my fight career was over, and my fight career ended just on an accident, so I didn't get to end that career the way I wanted it to end. But things happen, and probably for the better. So I get involved with the World Boxing Hall of Fame, become an executive member on the board, voting members, which was a blast. From there, I get involved one day I get a call from a friend of mine and asked me if I would like to get involved with one of the sanctioning bodies. So I said, sure, and so I get involved with the sanctioning body. They were headquartered in Germany, and it was the World Boxing Federation, which was one of the very first boxing organizations to sanction fights. And I'm going back into probably the late 70s, early 80s when that happened. So I become a supervisor for the World Boxing Federation, eventually become North American president of that organization, travel around the country, around the world as an international boxing judge, which was a lot of fun. As a supervisor, it was my job to go in whenever there was a title fight. I would make sure that the fighters made weight, check the gloves, make sure that we would give them 2 pairs of gloves, sign off on the gloves, make sure that I kept the gloves with me for the 24 hours before the fight so they weren't tampered with, and worked with the local boxing commissions. I've been fortunate to work with boxing commissioners all around the country, and around the world. So that's got involved with that. That then led to me becoming doing some ringside commentary for MMA and boxing matches up and down the state of California. Since then, I've done some like I said, live commentary. I host an event in Chicago every year called Chicago Boxing Brotherhood, which is a great event. They fly a lot of fighters in. Celebrities come in, so I'm fortunate to do that. And it goes on and on. To this day, I'm still involved now with the American Boxing Organization as a board member and a supervisor here in California.
That's outstanding. Are you still doing the Chicago event? Is an annual event?
Annual event, yeah. We usually do that every September, October, but they pushed it back to April of 2023. So I'll be flying out for that in April of 2023 to do that event, which is, again, a great event. I also, one other thing, when you talk about that, I do I'm a speaker. So I'm a keynote speaker. So I'm going down actually in April as well into Northern California to be a keynote speaker there at an event, which is Evolution Sports. It's a huge event. They get about 10,000 people there. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Outstanding. So when you were a judge, the judge in the traditional sense of Alan Santana scores at 7 rounds this guy, 4 rounds this guy. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is actually exactly how it is. Yes.
I'm so happy. I love to hear it from the horse's mouth. I watch fights, and the guys are watching the same fight. How does one guy score at 7-4, and the other guy scores it, 8-3? And they're watching the same fight? I'd love to know what that's about.
I think it's perspective. And I've worked as a supervisor. I actually work with judges myself, besides being a judge, and I've seen the same thing sitting with the commission where you've got 3 judges and you have 2 scores that are, 10-9 rounds. and you got one guy out there in left field, he's got a 7-10 round for the other guy. And you're going, how is that possible?
Right.
And it's perspective. Sometimes I think some of these judges, they shouldn't be judges, to be honest with you. There are a few judges that I have worked with in the past, and they had scores that were coming in like that, because what you do is at the end of the round, you tabulate those scores with the commissioner, and we make sure that everything's kosher. And you see these scores, and when they're that lopsided, I just say in my mind, I keep a book up in my mind, say that judge will never work for me ever again. So it's all perspective. Hopefully, me as an ex-fighter, I know what to look for when I'm watching a fight, and you have to concentrate. You have to know, you don't just give a guy a round because he's moving forward. You got to do things in order to win that round. So, one of the crazy things with Muhammad Ali, and it used to drive me nuts, he'd be losing a round, right? For 2 minutes and 30 seconds, he's losing the round. The last 30 seconds, he decides to turn it on, and the judges would give him the round. I never believed in doing it. I just thought it was so unfair. And, Muhammad Ali for me was one of my idols, but I couldn't stand when he did that,
Right. Well, that's a different perspective of the fight game, and I love it. So, when we talk about boxing, we talk about different things that you do, and we'll get into some more of that. But as an educator, I always believe in learning experiences. So, as a young adult, you continued the family business, even after an accident, I believe, while driving a dump truck for your father's company. You started Bay City Paving Company.
Yes.
So what aspects of being in that business have carried over into your success in other aspects of business?
I think, people don't realize how hard it is to be a business owner. There's a lot that comes, there's a lot involved with that. You're responsible for other people's lives, for their livelihood. My business actually feeds other businesses. So, you look at that, for me, I get up every day, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm out the door. I have 15, 16-hour days, and I've been doing this now for 42 years, believe it or not, a long time. But I also think that it's a daily regiment, so you have to be passionate about what you do. I get up in the morning with a passion and a desire. It's nice to go out and see that you physically have done, a street, a parking lot, or a concrete driveway, or whatever it is for the day, whatever the scope of work is for that day. But it's nice to say at the end of the day, hey, I've driven, you drive around the city, after 40 years in a business, I say, well, I paved that parking lot, I've done the Ralph's supermarket parking lot. So that it's nice, but again, business isn't for everybody. To be in business is not for everybody. Some people, they just weren't cut out for that. Others were. So I always advise people, if you're going to go into any business, the first thing you have to be is passionate about it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a place for everybody. And, just like with the glamour of sports and celebrity, people think, oh, business owner. And it's not, people just think that that's you stand at your desk and people hand you checks. And they don't get the marketing, the work, and the fact that you're still putting in it 42 years. People say, oh, I was at that job for 7. 42 years is really a business lifetime.
Yes.
So I know you've also cross-pollinate so many things that you do, because you're also an actor. So you're an author, you're a businessman, you're an actor. Let's talk to us about that acting bug.
I had that acting bug since I was a little kid in school. That was when, going back to the bullying thing. Well, in school, my friends to this day will still call me and we'll talk about it. They go, man, when you were 7, 8 years old, he said, and I don't remember this, but they do. They said, you used to set us down on the stairs in the school, and you would just ham it up. You would sing or do whatever. And so as a kid, I had Paramount Studios actually come to my house, my parents' house. They signed me to a contract as a child actor, until I was 18. My father ripped up the contract months later, so I never got to pursue that as a kid. And again, that was something I always wanted to do. So when I was about 16, a friend of mine came in from New York and took me over to an agent, George J. in Hollywood. Stood in front of George J., read some lines from him. He goes, you got this look about you. You look like kind of a cross between a James Dean and Elvis Presley. So he signs me on right there. Did a few things, which was a lot of fun. Back then at 16, I worked on oh my gosh, the White Hope, the White Shadow, actually. When you're 16 and you get a check for almost $500 for a day, you're going, wow, this is great, But then as I got older, I kind of got away from the acting just because of, marriage, family, kids, running a business, even boxing professionally at that time. And I had a couple other things I was doing. And so I didn't get to pursue that any longer. And, fast forward to age 55, I decided I wanted to jump back to try acting again. So I went out and I was able to land a speaking role. I've done 5 films now. We just wrapped up an action movie that is titled Death Becomes Him. Or Becomes Her, I think it is the name of the title. So just wrapped it up. I had quite a few lines in that movie. So it was a lot of fun, and the acting bug is, like I said, something I've always wanted to do. And I'm getting to do it now at 50, at 60 years old, actually. So, which is crazy.
Well, you're talking to a very, very, almost a stalker back when I was younger. So I was a big White Shadow fan, big Ken Howard fan.
Right.
Can you briefly walk us through the eyes of a 16-year-old Alan Santana going on a set of a show that was so popular with a big name such as a Ken Howard? I don't know if you had any scenes with him, but just the fact that you went there, what did that feel like and look like to you?
It was, first of all, surreal, 16, and you're just doing what you're doing. You're in the moment, and I really didn't give it any thought. You just, so we're doing this scene in a boxing gym, as a matter of fact. It's crazy. And I think, man, we had to do 30, 40 takes. It was ridiculous. I'm sitting there and over and over, I'm doing setups in this one scene. It didn't realize we were going to do so many takes, because when you're on the set, everything's got to be just right. You've got a ton of people around you, cameras, lights, there's makeup people, there's, you got your director, you got your sound guys, you guys with the boom mics. So a lot going on. So everything has to just be perfect. So it was, again, as a kid looking back, that was a great experience. And I would trade in for anything in the world.
Sure. I'm envious. I love that show. Very jealous now. Alan, I was actually lucky enough in the past to be a board member for your nonprofit, No Teen Riders. What made you start that organization? What was the passion behind it? What have you done with that organization?
Well, and it's a sad story. My second cousin, Sean Chapa, was living in Kentucky with his mom and father, 16 years old in high school, and just starting his life out basically. And one Saturday night, he gets in a car with 2 of his high school buddies. I think they were both 16 and 17. So there were 3 of them in the car. He's driving, loses control of the car, from what I understand. I get a call at 2:00 in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning, if I remember correctly. It's been years ago, and it was a state trooper from Kentucky asking if we knew who Sean was. I said, yeah, it's my cousin. He said, well, he's been killed in an automobile accident. Well, the car flipped over, wound up in a ditch, I guess, a stream or something. They all died. They perished. So it was sad. So that weighed heavily on my mind for years. And then, 5 years later, there's a horrific accident here in Orange County with 5 teenagers where they got killed going down MacArthur Boulevard. The kid wrapped the car around a tree at 85 miles an hour. All these kids died. So that night I kind of, did my daily routine with my business, come home, sit down, draw up a frame, the logos that I created, give them to my business partner, say, here, Eric, take these and clean them up for me. I want to do something about this. These kids and these teenagers driving. So that's how we founded No Teen Riders. Because of that. And I wanted to, again, educate teenagers in high schools across the country about about driving with the provisional driver's license and breaking the law when you're not supposed to carry kids in the car. So that's how that came about.
I also love the names. It's like a boxing name, No Teen Riders. You don't have to guess what he's talking about. It's not stay safe, boys and girls. It really is in your face, which you've kind of been in your face, businessman, boxer. What you've gone to when it comes to motivational speaking, I know it's at schools also, but what is your motivational speaking business like? What do your presentations entail?
Well, you know what? And I'm going to bear with me for a second. I'm going to pull this book up. So
please.
So I go into schools with this book. Hope you can see this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was approached at a movie premiere that we were at. And after the movie premiere, this company comes up to me. These people asked me if they could speak with me. I said, sure. So they asked me if I would be interested in, representing this book as an ambassador. So I went in the home that weekend. I looked at the Reach 60 program that they had created, and I came back and said, yeah, I'd love to do this. So they asked me, what I would like to have in the book. So I said, let's talk about drugs, gangs, bullying, and education. those are four topics that are very near and dear to my heart, especially when you're going into elementary schools and you're talking to kids that are so impressionable at a young age. So I've been able to go into schools locally here in California with the help of my publicist and talk to these kids and mentor them. So we get up on stage. I've spoken upwards of 400 or 500 kids at a time. And we talk about gangs, we talk about bullying, we talk about drugs and education, how important those things are. So that's one of the things I love doing. I'm very passionate about that. I'll be going into 5 schools here in the next month in Los Angeles, LA Unified School District, and doing what I love to do with these kids.
So, and what are the age groups?
They're elementary school kids, so elementary school children. What is that?
It could be K to 6, something like that. K to 5.
And we usually do this program. I do this program for kids that are in like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So
that's great. I think preaching to the choir, because although I was a content area specialist, I was an English teacher. I think that these kind of things are so needed in school, because character education and this kind of life training, life skills training, is very, very important. So in closing, what is next for Alan Santana?
Well, again, a lot going on. I really want to stay involved with the schools, and then, that's a passion I have. I'm finishing up a second book that I'm writing. I've actually taken the first book, added more chapters to it. So that's going to be going to print, and, continue doing what I'm doing. Like I said, I love working with children. As far as the acting and the film stuff, I might just walk away from that. I could say, hey, I've been there, done it. Right. It's been fun. But for me, my passion when I was working with the kids, hopefully getting more of these license plate films to the kids in high schools for no teen writers, and then working with kids in the books I have here, and just hopefully being able to mentor these kids and show them that there is a path in life that they can take to become successful, as long as they put their minds to it.
Love that philosophy. So, Alan Santana, thank you so much for being the guest today, sharing your passion for the sport of boxing, helping boxers and athletes learn how to protect themselves financially. Many thanks for your work with No Teen Writers. I know it's from the heart. And to my viewers, thanks for joining us today. We hope to see you soon. Alan Santana, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.